Greetings, everyone. Happy late night here on Dogs Down South. A little bit later than normal. We are coming off of day one of SEC Media Days in Tampa, Florida. And today, if anyone missed it, we had Kentucky, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Tennessee that came to the podium today during SEC Media Days. I caught a lot of banter from SEC Nation that was out there, a lot of fans out there in Tampa. I did not get my media access. Nobody put my requests in, so I will not be attending. Maybe overnight. I don't know. Obviously, the Dogs go tomorrow, so maybe, I don't know. Maybe I get my email overnight with all my credentials and everything for me to get in tomorrow. No, in all seriousness, I will not be at SEC Media Days tomorrow. However, Kirby Smart, Raylan Wilson, and Bobo, and not Mike Bobo, and Gunnar Stockton will be at SEC Media Days representing Georgia, obviously, right alongside Kirby Smart. And it's going to be a really good day. You got Auburn, you got Georgia right behind them early, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. And then if you all are looking forward to Alabama, Florida, Ole Miss, Texas A&M on Wednesday. And then Thursday to finish us out, we got Arkansas, LSU, Mississippi State, and Texas. Drew Bobo is going to be there. I know I teased it. Mike Bobo, I don't think will be speaking at SEC Media Days. It will be Drew Bobo and Raylan Wilson and Gunnar Stockton. A lot of us seeing pictures of them on the flight heading down to Tampa today. So interested to see what questions they answer tomorrow and how that goes and what Kirby says and doesn't say. And this is a norm for Kirby. I mean, he's been a coach for Georgia now for a good while, and he's been a part of these media days for a long time now. And so this will be a walk in the park, a normal average day for him. If anything, like Nick Saban used to say, I'm here because I have to be here. I want the fans and I want all the media to know that we're here, but we don't really look at it as something that's really just off the charts important to us. But we're here, and we're, as some of the NBA or NFL will say, we're here so we don't get fined. But yeah, so we're looking forward to it. I know I spoke of Auburn, Georgia, South Carolina, Vanderbilt leading us off tomorrow. And that's where we're going to start tonight. We are going to, so on our agenda, we are going to finish up. Tonight is it. This is the end of SEC summer preview. So we're going to try to squeeze in 3 teams tonight. I've really, no offense to Vanderbilt, but I figured we could squeeze in 3 teams because Vanderbilt is one of them. We're also going to get Texas A&M, and we're also going to finish out with Ole Miss. Fitting because I feel like Ole Miss is going to be a very important game on Georgia's schedule this year, as well as big reason, Ole Miss knocking Georgia off last year to end their playoff hopes, getting the revenge factor after we beat Ole Miss in Athens. And so we're going to preview all 3 of these teams, and then I'm going to do my final SEC preview picks, what I think. This is just how I think preseason to have something to go off of, that the SEC will finish based off of preseason hype, if you want to call it that. Okay. So let's dive right in. We're gonna start with Vanderbilt. Now, Vanderbilt last year, a lot of noise the last 2 years coming out of Nashville. I think the biggest part of the noise coming out of Nashville since Diego Pavia in the last 2 years has been the flip of Jared Curtis from the University of Georgia to Vanderbilt. Now, we could sit here and we could ponder on what got him to Nashville and things of that nature, but we all know, I think that the paycheck was a little bit higher, the chance to start right off the bat. I'm not saying that Georgia can look at this and go, well, is what it is. We didn't really need Jared Curtis. We can have that kind of butthurt mentality, but I do think Jared Curtis was a player that was going to be very beneficial for us. He wasn't the end all be all, but I think this year he will be a really good player. Now, as we all know, a quarterback in his freshman season running for his life, already the game is going to be very fast. The collegiate game will be very fast to him, and you definitely don't want pass rush coming faster than it should, having to run for your life, having to create on the run. And I do think that that's what Jared Curtis is going to be doing a lot of this year. Georgia is going to get Vanderbilt at home this year on the weekend of the 4th, I think it's the 3rd of October, if I'm not mistaken. And so Jared Curtis will be coming to Athens regardless of if he wants to or not. Interested to see how that game will play out, is just as far as fans and how people, the media and things, play that out with Jared Curtis leaving to go to Nashville. And I don't know. I mean, in an NIL area and the way the transfer portal is going, I mean, I don't see a way this could work out really, really positive for this kid this year, especially when I, just kind of talk Vanderbilt a little bit here about kind of the talent drop off from Vanderbilt. Now, Clark Lee has done an amazing job at Vanderbilt, and I think Clark Lee thinks that he can win at Vanderbilt. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why Jared Curtis came to Vanderbilt. The money was right. I do know that the academics at Vanderbilt is very good if you're trying to go and actually go to school and not just, play collegiate sports as a form of profit. But I do think that Vanderbilt lost some key components to these last 2 years of teams that I think if they were going to make a run, it would have needed to be the last, definitely last year, if not the year before last. So when you look at players, that were from that team that are coming back this year, obviously the big name on campus is Jared Curtis. Barring a shocking event, I think Jared Curtis will be under center come the first game of the year. I think they look at it and go, we paid too much money. He was playing a lot of downs against, the defense, the first team defense in the Vanderbilt spring game. And so I do think him coming in and doing all of that means he is the guy, and they are going to press through this year with him. And I guess try to go, look, we can get him where we need to be. I don't think they're taking like a mulligan this year, but I do think if they can look at it and go, if we can get where we want to be this year and get him the experience he needs, maybe we can have 2, maybe possibly 3 years with Jared Curtis. And needless to say, he is a talent. He's a great arm talent. He's a elusive quarterback. He's in my opinion, he's a little bit more of a dual threat than he is like a pure pocket passer. So I think he'll be good for Vanderbilt. Now, what's not going to be good for Vanderbilt is this reworked offensive line, a defense that lost a lot. They lost a lot of playmakers on the outside, and just a team that's going to be a little bit depleted as far as the portal and as far as graduation. And obviously, we know the big Diego Pavia, who went on to the NFL, and we'll see how that career goes. But the big names, Cedric Alexander is the biggest name past Curtis that's coming back on the offense to provide some punch on the offense. And I do feel like they are going to have to lean on this a little bit. Now, you're kind of playing a little bit of checkers and chess because we just talked about this offensive line that is very much reworked. When you look at the youth on this line and you look at, some of the guys coming through who have been there, but just might not be as talented as you want coming in. I mean, we're all playing the NCAA football game right now, and I'm not saying that's what we go off of, but I can tell you, go on and check some of these ratings for Vanderbilt on this front line, and it's not very positive. It might be more of a team you want to start your dynasty with, right, and work them up. But Cedric Alexander is a key piece of this. Junior Sherrill, obviously, and Bryce Coleman, Cole Adams, Cole Spence to the tight end who transferred in. Cade McDonald is kind of the senior 6'5", 323 kind of staple in this offensive line. If it's going to go this year, it's going to go through him and his leadership. Miles Capers, Glenn Seabrooks the third, Brian Longwell, some big names you need to know, and C.J. Hurd, the talented junior safety back there. So this team is I don't even say this team's young. It's just there's a lot of seniors on defense, but I just feel like they got depleted a little bit too much this year in the portal. And the offense, I mean, yeah, you have most of the stables of backs in the back. Some of these, you got a couple of seniors with Alexander and Sherrill at wide receiver. But in my opinion, there's just a lot of mixture of youth with this. I mean, when you look back really quick to Indiana's gameplay last year and the whole mixture of what everybody was talking about with, Kirk Cignetti putting all these 25-year-olds from the portal and older guys and been there, done that. I mean, there may be some method to madness to that, but you can't look past either, the mindset of him and his play calling and his coaching. And I don't know if he could shoot up the ranks like he did. And sometimes the hottest take is the coach that wins the national championship comes out of nowhere, and everybody's like, man, you're just going to give him, you're going to give him the go ahead as the best coach in college football in 1 year. I mean, I don't know. Let's see how Indiana does this year with the pieces, Josh Hoover, and a couple of pieces of the puzzle that need to come together to see what they can do this year. It's a new year. You can't go off of statistics from last year. So that's why we talk all this. We talk all this during media days. We talk about previewing teams during the summer because this is a new year. This is players in different parts of their career, players in different teams this year, trying to make other teams better. When you look at the schedule this year for Vanderbilt, now I will tell you that the schedule is very appealing to me for Vanderbilt in a year where if you would have looked at the schedule 2 years ago, last year, I would have said, I don't know, maybe they could have made a little bit of a run through this schedule and done some good things. But I think this year the schedule is a little bit appealing as far as if they're going to have youth, if they got kind of tore up as far as the portal and graduation. This is the schedule you want. One of the easier schedules, in my opinion, in the SEC. Obviously, September 5th, they open up against Austin Peay, then Delaware, and I think they get a couple of wins there right off the bat. NC State, September 19th at home. I think they can. It just depends, really. Right, it depends on how settled Jared Curtis gets in. But I do think they can still run the football, and I think they'll be good at home. And I think Clark Lee is still going to have a dominant presence, and they're going to be disciplined. They're going to play good football, and they're going to still possibly win some games that people don't think they will win this year. But I think they'll win those 3 games. I think the first test is going to be September 26th on the road at Auburn. It's going to be a tough game, but I think, Clark Lee and Jared Curtis, Jordan Hare on the road, I do think the Auburn might be too much for them in this game. So I think Auburn will win that game. I think they go on the road to Georgia after that, and they lose that. So they're 3-2. And then this is their biggest dip right here, in my opinion. And I say easier schedule. I mean, I'm not saying easier schedule meaning they're going to win a lot of games on the schedule, but I am saying favorable as far as not having to play Georgia and Texas and Alabama and Texas A&M and a lot of the teams that are, that are going to come out of the SEC, and I possibly have picked to go to the playoff. But I do think it's promising as far as who they drew in the SEC with a 9-game schedule, though. I mean, I think the SEC is the best, and it is biased. I think the SEC is the best conference in college football. But I think it's biased, but I also think it's true. So you go to Ole Miss. I think they ended up 3-3 here. Arkansas at home, they'll win that 4-3. I think they can go to Kentucky. This will be a little bit of a weird game here because this will give Stein and Kentucky a chance to have gotten kind of the ball rolling. I think this could be a toss-up, but I'm going to take Clark Lee in this one and their ability to get it done in this one. So I'll give them 4-4, and I think at Mississippi State on the road, this is going to be a barn burner. They got to lose one of these, I think. One of these barn burners or, statistically challenging games for them as far as their ability to score points. I think Mississippi State's going to give them problems. I think they could lose this game, so I think you could see them at 4-5 here, then 4-6. I think at Florida's challenging 4-7. So I see Vanderbilt that over under 4 or 5 wins this year, but I don't see them obviously doing as good as they did last year. I definitely don't see them vying for any kind of playoff positioning. It's going to be a challenging year for Vanderbilt, all in all. But I'm interested to see what Jared Curtis does as well. Is this a smart play by Clark Lee? I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things where it's a bang for your buck because you're like, if I'm going to spend this amount of money on this kid, then let's go ahead and let's get him going, I guess, per se. Moving right along, though, as we got a lot to cover tonight. So Texas A&M is a team, too, that I have they're on my kind of bubble for playoffs, and we'll talk in a minute when we look at their games and the strategy of how these games will play out. But obviously, when you look at Texas A&M, this is a team that very well coached. When you look at Texas A&M, the stadium, the pageantry, college football for the Aggies, the recruiting that has been done the last 2 years, I mean, are they prized to win this year? I mean, obviously Marcel Reed, that's the biggest question right there. Like, that's where we stop everything. I think the defense is going to be good enough this year. I think the offense is going to be challenged a little more because I'm curious with this. Once again, you're going to hear this a lot this year in the SEC with this offensive line, this revamped offensive line. I don't per se know if this is as good of an offensive line as they've had in the last 2 or 3 years. I don't know if they're going to be able to run the football as well as they have the past 2 or 3 years. So is that going to put a little bit more pressure on Marcel Reed? Who knows? But I know that there's some Jekyll and Hyde also with Marcel Reed that has been very challenging for Texas A&M. I mean, you look back at that playoff game and you kind of shake your head and go, I don't know that Marcel Reed. The kid's electric. I think they're going to throw the ball a little bit more this year. And I think they have some names out there that can get it done. But once again, it's going to fall on, I've also looked at Lenore Sellers and look at what the offensive line, the inability to block last year did to him. It made him irrelevant compared to the year before, where I felt like he had a much better year because he had a much better offensive line. Obviously, when we look at players, we talked about Marcel Reed, big names. Mario Craver has the opportunity to lead. I think since Texas A&M is going to throw the ball a little bit more this year, I think Mario Craver is going to be a top 2, top 3 receiving yards in the SEC type player this year. He's an electric player. He's got big time playmaking ability. I think they're going to find ways to get him the ball. And, you didn't really lose, Reuben Owens is no slouch. I think he's going to be a key aspect, but once again, like, how much can they get done with reworking this line of scrimmage? The addition of Isaiah Horton out of Alabama is going to be key. I think you have some kind of thunder and lightning, if you want to call it, but I look at Horton as more of he's a deep play guy, has a little bit more body, a little bit more framework, where I think they can stretch the field with Isaiah Horton. I think they can stretch the field with Cravers too, but I think Cravers is going to be electric in that they're going to be able to line him up in different places and get him the ball in different ways. But this is definitely lining up to get Marcel Reed a little bit more, some more playmakers to where he can air it out a little bit. Now, that just means that, what has changed in the offseason with Marcel Reed is which one are we getting? What kind of statistics are we getting out of him? I think he can be electric, but I think he can be a little bit of a head case sometimes. When you look at the defense, there's a lot of like depth on this defense. There's a lot of senioritis on this defense, but it's been reworked. It'll still be good, but I don't know if it'll be the Texas A&M defenses of the past. Big names to know. You look at T.J. Searcy, you look at Damian Sanford, you look at Dalton Brooks, you look at Marcus Ratcliffe. This is a very senior-heavy defensive line. Very senior-heavy. C.J. Mims, D.J. Hicks, Anto Saka. I mean, this is a good defense. This is a very veteran. This is very much a veteran defense. I would cling to say, even though when you look at what veterans are going to be on that offensive line, you still wonder how well can they mesh early on? How well can they mesh? Period. What Texas A&M also has a lot of this year is I call them battleships. I mean, a lot of these Texas A&M guys are, 330, 335. You don't have a lot of that. Marcel Reed is going to challenge it, depending on the play calling too. You got a new play caller, new offensive coordinator. I don't know if I agree with the suggestion with the offensive coordinator. We'll see. You might see somebody new in there 3 or 4 games in. Who knows? But I do see this offense you had the passing game coordinator, and I don't have his name right off the bat, off the OC taking over, but you had the passing game coordinator. So you think you're probably going to get more passing offense. Probably right. But I think Texas A&M is going to rely heavily on Marcel Reed throwing the ball a little bit more this year. I don't know if they're going to be able to line up and just run Reuben Foster right at people like they have in the past. That's just me. Le'Veon Moss was really great as well, but Reuben Foster is a little bit different of a back. So I think Texas A&M is going to be good this year. I think they are one of my bubble teams as far as the college football playoff. As we look at scheduling, I think a lot of things that help Texas A&M scheduling is a lot of games with the 12th man, a lot of games, down there at home with the 12th man, a loud stadium, going to be some night games. And I think it's a favorable schedule. That's what gives Texas A&M some hope. I think this is the tale of favorable schedules for these two teams. We're not going to talk about a favorable schedule for the last team tonight in a minute with Ole Miss, but when you look at them getting Missouri State at home, I think they get Arizona State at home and they get Kentucky at home, and I think all those are wins. I think they start out strong at home 3-0, and then they have to turn around and go to Death Valley. This is four games in with Lane Kiffin and this offense, and you're either going to know really quick if it's not going to work or it is, and if it's clicking, this is going to be a night game. This is going to be in Death Valley at night. It's just hard to win at night. Lane Kiffin, Blake Baker. I'm giving LSU a little bit of an edge right here. I'm kind of giving them a little bit more of an edge too in my preseason predictions too, but we'll hear that in a second. Arkansas at home, I think that's a win. At Missouri, man, I tell you what, when you look at Missouri this year and you look at the pieces that Eli Drinkowitz, I just feel like no matter how you can twist and turn Eli Drinkowitz, this Missouri team, when they look and they say, man, this is quiet, this is Austin Simmons, this is a team that, I feel like, and we previewed them already, but it's going to be heavy run based, barring that they're healthy there. But I do think Missouri is going to be hard to get at Missouri, but I do think Texas A&M can do it, and I'm going to give the edge to that. So I think they are 5-1 going into the Citadel. I think they get the Citadel, and then they go to Alabama, which is a key swing game that I think at Alabama late in the season. Man, I'm picking A&M to go into Alabama and win that game. So I think they have one loss. So you're looking at what, 3-1, 4-1, 5-1. So you're looking at 7-1. I think they go to at South Carolina and they get it. That's 8-1. And here comes your burner part of the schedule, as I call it. Tennessee at home is going to be key for them. So I think they get that game. And then I think there's a good possibility they could drop Oklahoma and Texas. So I do have Texas A&M 9-3. I think this is a tough, Elko. If Elko can get one of these games at the end at Oklahoma or Texas, it's a game changer. But they got to go to Oklahoma and they get Texas at home. And I don't know. I mean, I'm also predicting that Texas has a rough go at it. I'm going to be fair, but as of right now, let's just say they don't get that game, and on the outside looking in and being smart about it, let's say they're a 3-loss team, and that to me, a 9-3 SEC, that's a SEC bubble team. It's 3 losses with a chance to probably still get in there. I think it has to help them with a 9-game schedule this year. So Texas is a bubble team for me. The biggest thing that is a sleeper with me is what Marcel Reed do we get? What Marcel Reed do we get? And how does that work out, in the long run for them? If they can't throw the ball and that offensive line can't hold up, where do they go? And there are some games on there that they're going to have to go in. Alabama is going to scheme it up to make Marcel Reed win the football game for them. Texas is going to scheme that up. If you don't think Will Muschamp is not going to dial it up to go, Marcel Reed, you're going to have to win the game against us, then I'd be lying. They're not going to allow Reuben Foster to control and the defense to control the destiny of that game. So, last but not least, finishing up our SEC summer preview, we're going to preview the Old Miss, did I just really say that? The Ole Miss Rebels. And like I said earlier, fitting that we're doing that because Ole Miss obviously is the team that put Georgia out last year in the Sugar Bowl. A lot to talk about, but I think one of the biggest things to talk about, this is an Ole Miss team, obviously, unless you've been hiding under a rock somewhere, that is not being coached by Lane Kiffin anymore. Lane Kiffin ducked and dodged and headed on out to LSU. And so now Pete Golding is the coach there. And, the changes that have been made have been, heavily relied upon, obviously, on the offense. I mean, I can't tell you enough about the fact that this team is what people are saying. And I'm interested to hear them at media days, but they really look at Ole Miss. Some people look at Ole Miss and they go, this is not the same team without Lane Kiffin. Now, it was just a team that honestly still made a really good run, but you have parts of that coaching staff that will not be there. And you have a new OC, you have new parts of the offense, but you still have Trinidad Chambliss, you still have Kewan Lacey, you still have some big parts of this offense. They did very well in the portal. And so when you look at this team, it has the opportunity talent-wise to still do really, really well. I think they're the most, I would call it, curious. Like it's the most curious team in all the SEC this year because it's really going I talked about it way, way, way earlier in the year when I said the difference is that he took over a plane that was already flying. It was in, it's like, hey man, can you just hold the controls for me and get us to where we're going? And now it's like I gotta taxi the plane. I gotta get us going. I gotta take this off. I gotta get us there. And then I gotta land. It's like he's in control of the entire thing. And I don't know. I mean, does it connect? Is this the right choice? Is Pete Golding gonna be good for the SEC and as a head coach in college football? We'll see. I think the offense and I think a lot of pieces of this offense will stay intact to go out and do well, but I don't know. John David Baker's been in Ole Miss before, and he knows what he's doing. He was there a little bit towards the end of the year, but got to start looking at what relationship and what that does and how that looks on a big scale as far as how it transfers into the team. And also the culture, right? Culture is huge. Lane Kiffin is a big culture guy. He was known to run practices a little bit different. I think you say the same things about Kirby Smart, but I would say different on the other end, more of the laid back, more of the loose. He likes to keep his team loose. He doesn't want them to feel uptight, things of that nature. And I think Kirby does kind of the same, but he presses you to the point where nothing feels hard. Practices are hard. And we can go into that a lot, later on, but it's more of a looser environment. How will Pete Golding be? I have no idea. And like you said, Pete Golding's not going to change anything middle of, the playoffs last year. I think he kept the culture the same. A lot of what he was doing was to go, hey, how can we keep this ship going and try to win a national championship? And so he didn't put a lot of what he's going to put into it in early. As far as talent, I mean, obviously Trinidad Chambliss speaks for itself. I think he's one of the top, 2-3 quarterbacks, if not the top quarterback in the SEC returning this year for his, I don't know, what is it, 6th, 7th year of eligibility. He got a ruling from a judge, about a thumb sprain or a stomach virus or something like that, or the flu that kept him out or something like, I don't know, a sty in his eye. Who knows? I'm being facetious, but like it's just kind of ridiculous. I don't know. Kewan Lacey returning, I think, one of the top backs in the SEC this year. And then you have some of the question marks, even though there's a lot of talent here. Obviously Deuce Alexander, Darryl Gill Jr., Caleb Cunningham, Lucas Haas, a lot of that line returning this year, which is going to play a big role with Kewan Lacey. But here, the defense is what is going to be a little bit better, and I think people are giving it a chance to be. You look at Cam Frankie, you look at Will Eccles, Centurion Perkins, and you look at Jalen Braxton, Antonio. So, I mean, you look at this defense, and this is a typical, Pete Golding defense, and it's going to be good. But this is also a guy who's not just focused on the defense this year. So, there's some question marks. There's some question marks. Everything. So much to so I'm going to end it with three big questions. What does Trinidad Chambliss do for an encore? This is the guy that threw for 3,900 yards last year. Elusive guy, makes plays happen. Had one of the best games of his career. He had to against Georgia in the playoffs. But can he mesh? With the new OC in the same way? Can he be as comfortable with John David Baker to produce those type numbers? Is there an encore, or does he fall off? Does he pull a moment where it's like, man, everybody's going, maybe he should have left, right? Maybe he shouldn't have went for his 6th or 7th year of eligibility. I don't really know how many it is, but can the defense be elite? Is Pete Golding's focus, running two sides of the ball, not necessarily running two sides of the ball, but, having to do something that is a little bit different? He could turn his head when it came down to, the defense being off the field and the offense being on the field. He can't do that this time, right? He can't spend that extra time in the huddle. He can't spend that developmental time of getting those players a little bit more surrounded around the game plan. He's got to coach this team. He's got to make decisions as a head coach on the sideline. Will that affect the defense? Big question. And what does a full season with Pete Golding in charge look like? Who knows? Like we talked about it earlier. What is the culture going to look like? How is it going to be different? How is it going to be the same? Does he change anything? Does he feel like that, rocking the boat is a mistake? Who knows? But I do know that is the same. Those questions right there are the same reason why I think there's a lot of people that are going to have Ole Miss as a question mark. Not necessarily to make the college football playoff. I'm going to give you my rankings here in 1 second. But I do think as far as productivity and what they've done the last 2 or 3 years, we all know that Ole Miss has definitely looked the part. And Lane Kiffin was really good for Ole Miss, regardless of what people want to say. I think Lane Kiffin's a great coach. I think Lane Kiffin has a huge offensive mind. When I say huge, it's like he just has a ton of knowledge about the offensive side of the ball. It's where he's best at. I mean, when you look at it, is he a good head coach? I think he's grown into a good head coach. I think he's grown into a dangerous head coach. When you give this man the money that you've given him to go out and produce the players and get the players he needs to run the offense, and and Blake Baker run the defense they want to run, that gets pretty dangerous really quick in an era where it's more like running an NFL team rather than running a college football team. So people don't have those funds. LSU does, obviously. LSU has enough funds to pay. I think they're paying 2 other coaches, and I don't know. I think they're still playing some possible players. They're paying some players still that don't even run on their roster. Who knows? I mean, they're paying Lane Kiffin $40,000 to go on a vacation with his family on their private jet that's in his contract. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. For LSU's sake and for Lane Kiffin's sake, I hope it all works out, because I don't know how. Here's a hot take. How can you miss? How can LSU miss? Les Miles, who did some great things, who maybe they were a little picky about, right? Maybe Les Miles had fallen off, right? And then you look at it and you go, we go out and we get Brian Kelly. Doesn't pan out. Make a big splash, Notre Dame, bring him down, doesn't pan out. Then you go and you continue to pay him, and you make you basically do a cannonball in the middle of the pool, and you go get Lane Kiffin and you give him a budget. You fly his family around for vacation. This has got to be a hit, right? LSU looks like the laughing stock of college football if it's not a hit. Now, did they play the best bet? I mean, yeah, they did. They played a really good bet. They played a safe bet. But I also will tell you that we don't know. Like, we don't know, especially if you're hungry early. Are they made up to win early? Yes, they gotta be. They gotta be. Is this a $40,000? Like I'm sorry, $40 million roster. It might be. I mean, when I'm hearing Marler and SEC podcast, Mike and Cousin Shane, I'm hearing throw around numbers, and I'm hearing millions of dollars in the 40s thrown out there for this team. How can you not be successful early? Yes, you have to connect the culture, but we all know that Lane Kiffin is known as the portal king. So If it does, look out. LSU, put it all on red, and they won. But if not, it's the biggest bet you possibly can have that could bounce back and burn you. I mean, it's one of those where you walk in and you put it all out there, and your casino night could be 10 minutes. And that's what they did. They bet 10 minutes in the casino on Lane Kiffin, because if not, they're going to be sitting in this misery for a long, long time. A long, long time. And I don't think Ed Orgeron was brought into the staff to take over in case Lane Kiffin's gone. You're going to be sitting in it a long time and praying that Lane Kiffin is the answer. If it's not this year, next year, or the year after. I don't know if they have any more money, and if they do, you got to tell me where it's all coming from, because it's a little suspicious. But anyways, well, that concludes our SEC summer preview, and it's been a long summer of previewing it. But I think it's important to look at each team that plays Georgia, look at kind of an outside view of players that are going to be on their roster, talk a little bit about what some of their strengths are, weaknesses, where we think they're going to be, and regardless, when you look at some of these teams that I discussed throughout the last few weeks and say, this team's going to struggle. This team might, where's this team going to be? Will this team have a coach in the next few weeks or months? More like months. I don't know, but I still think the SEC is the best conference. And I'll put the Kentuckys and the Vanderbilts and those bottom Arkansas and type teams against a lot of the other parts of the mid-tier and lower parts of these other conferences, and feel very, very confident about their performance against them. So, and not lack of coaching either. I honestly think the coaching is as strong as it's ever been in the SEC. A couple of the new names, I think Steiner Recliner down there at Kentucky, he had a bold comment today on Media Day. He said, they asked him, why are you so confident that Kentucky's going to do well this year? And he said it. He said, I think it's because of me. He said, I think it's because I know what it takes to win. I know what it takes to recruit at a high level. I know what it takes to go put the football down on the ground and play football. And that's big, bold words. And I think I know why Kentucky was so excited about this guy. He's a Kentucky guy. He said all the right things. But at the end of the day, man, that's the sideline of the SEC. And you got a 9-game schedule, and you're going to play a lot of really good teams this year. So it's going to be an interesting year. But that ends it out. That finishes it out. And that turns us straight towards Media Day tomorrow and Georgia. I'm going to finish the night out with some preseason kind of picks and how I think it's going to finish up. Give you my take on the SEC before we hop in solely on Georgia. And for the listeners, if you guys have been like, man, you've been grinding through the SEC, I don't think everybody just wants to hear, off-season conversation about Georgia, even though some do it really well. I do think a lot of you all are going like, look, what does the rest of the SEC look like? What are we going up against? It's a time to take a little bit off, because we're going to be promoting Georgia and talking Georgia so much. Starting even tomorrow night. Myself and Fish will be on tomorrow night. Make sure you tune in, catch us on YouTube, Facebook, and obviously Apple Podcast and Spotify 24 hours later. And we're going to be breaking down media days for Georgia. And then we're going to talk first off-season stuff about Georgia coming into camp, some preseason camp news, some statistical things, and we're going to review them kind of like we did the rest of the teams in the SEC. But before we end the night, I do want to end with kind of predictions for the year and what I think it's going to land on before we get done with our SEC summer preview. And so without any further ado, let me grab a swallow of water and let's do it. We're going to go from 16 all the way to 1, and you'll see these all over the internet right now. On Sports, obviously, you see them, ESPN, SEC Nation, Sports Illustrated, a lot of these places that are doing these on 3, CBS Sports. But I'm going to start with, for me, so 16 for me is going to be the Arkansas Razorbacks. I think this is going to be a tough year. I mentioned that in the SEC summer preview. It's going to be a tough year for Silver Fox, Rick Springfield, Silverfield. I think I'm purposely wanting to to just rip that name up because everybody rips it up. I can't even tell you if I've actually heard his name called right this year. So, but doesn't matter. I think Arkansas is going to be right here. It's going to be a tough year for Arkansas. I think if he is the man, this will be a year where we will see him get his feet wet, and he will hit the recruiting trail, and he will start forming this into what his version of the Arkansas Razorbacks look like for the future. I know the portal is alive and well, but I do think it's going to be a couple of. I think it's going to be a couple of years. This guy, I think he has to. I think it's gone through impatience the last few years, and I think it needs to go through some patience the next few years, unless it's just derailing, unless culture's derailing, locker room's derailing, and they can't get anybody in the portal and they can't get anybody in the seats. That's a different story, but we shall see. But I have Arkansas at 16. I'm going to try to only give these guys like 2 or 3 minutes per time I pick them. Mississippi State, I have at 15. It was tough for me in Kentucky. I'll be honest, I actually changed this pick after the day after hearing Will Stein at SEC Media Days. I think Will Stein is going to be a really good coach at Kentucky. I looked at Mark Stoops and I go, and here's my thing too that I thought about today. I was like, if Kentucky finally pulled the trigger on Mark Stoops, I never thought that would happen. I really didn't. I thought Mark Stoops would be on a very hot seat this year, but I did not think that would happen. And who knows? There's been speculation that he and the boosters as well as the AD sat down, and it was kind of mutual in some ways, with Mark Stoops kind of leading some of the conversation, wanting some suggestions about what people thought. I don't think this was one of those ones where he was shocked. I don't think Kentucky was shocked. I think everybody kind of sat down and was like, are we going to do the same thing the same way this year and think it's going to continue to get better? And it might not. And maybe for Stoops' sake, he's like, man, this might be humiliating this year. Maybe there does need to be, this could be bad. And, I'm going out on a little bit of a rough spurt with Kentucky, but it could be worse. It could be way worse. So I think this pick had a lot to do with it because I think Lebby and this defense and Zach Arnett, it's preseason, right? It's preseason who I haven't seen a soul play, but it all has to line up. Does Kamario Taylor, line up with, that receiving core and that offense, and can he get that very talented arm under control, and does it all click, and can Zach Arnett change that defense over in a year? That's where I'm still concerned. I think this offense will be good, and I think Zach Arnett will be great for changing the dynamic of this defense. I don't know if he can do it year one because of just not a lot of great recruiting on that side of the ball and the inability to get players on that side of the ball. But I think they're going to score points, but I think they're going to have a hard time stopping people again this year in some ways. So I have Mississippi State 15th, which I just told you I had Kentucky 14th. And the biggest thing I think about Kentucky is if Will Stein can get something out of Kenny Minchey and make this offense turn kind of like a Jeff Lebby did the last few years at Mississippi State, with the twist being Will Stein spending a lot of seasons with Dan Lanning, and Dan Lanning is a it's a defensive mastermind. I mean, he learned from some of the best, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart. Dan Lanning knows what he's doing on defense, and so I give that edge to Will Stein this year. Unfortunately, like Jeff Lebby, I think Lebby's on a little bit of a hot seat actually this year. I don't know how much longer Mississippi State can continue to look at what they're looking at and be okay with it. I really don't. Next, I have Vanderbilt. Just talked about them. After all that, I do think Vanderbilt is still going to have enough. I give it with Alexander, with the defense being under Clark Lee. And Clark Lee, I look at some of those pillars of what's going to go on at Vanderbilt, and I give them a huge upside with that. And so I have Vanderbilt at 13. I have this is where it gets tricky. This is where it gets very tricky, but I have the Auburn Tigers at 12. I think Auburn is going to, I'm fine with the defense under DJ Durkin. Does this pan out? Does Alex Golesh in the offense and what he's going to bring in year one is going to be much more exciting than you've ever seen the last 4 or 5 years at Auburn. I mean, since Gus Bus, in my opinion, but I think Gus Bus also could get a little bit, rudimentary with what he's doing at the play calling, depending on what the strengths of the offense were. And it didn't matter to Auburn because they were winning games. They were winning national championships at that time. But I think after you look at what Auburn's been through on offense the past 3 to 4 years, man, I just think this will be a breath of fresh air. However, how does this all pan out in the SEC? Now, you look at Byron Brown, you look at half of the USF offense and defensive coming over. I get it. I think about USF and how they probably blew it last year against Alabama. I mean, that game was, 2 years ago, that game was won, right? They were up and they gave that game away. And I don't know if that plays. They Florida last year, and I don't think you can look at some of these games and look past them, but I do think it has to transfer into the SEC. And so I don't just give them a thrilling fist in the air and go, Auburn's going to be 10 times better this year. I'm going to play it safe with Auburn and go, they will be better. They'll look better, but I don't know statistically if it'll still pan out for them as far as wins and losses. So I have Auburn at 12. This is another one I changed last minute, merely because I think South Carolina, I'm being talked in to South Carolina more. Now, with that being said, I'm sure you guys are like, oh, does that mean you have South Carolina at next at 11? No, I actually have Missouri right here. So I have Arkansas, Mississippi State, Kentucky, Vanderbilt, Auburn, and then I have Missouri right here. I think Austin Simmons, this defense, Eli Drinkwitz, man, you look at Missouri, and I would have told you that maybe I have Missouri a little bit higher. I would tell you right now, a lot of the things that affected me with Missouri was Ahmad Hardy. I still don't know how. It's a mystery how healthy he will be. I don't know. I want the best. I want this kid to be like going at it. Like I want him to be out there game one and going at it. They don't need him game 1, 2, or 3, in my opinion. But maybe it'd be if you see him out there, it's like, okay, wait. If he gets 2, 3 games under his belt, we get to see really what he's like. But the extent of his injury and what went on with the shooting and how bad he was, they're very hush hush on it. A lot of secrets going on with Ahmad Hardy. As a matter of fact, you may hear more about that obviously at media days, which we're going to be kind of pressed in on. But and I'm listening to those one at a time, and we're obviously going to cover Georgia's tomorrow night in depth. But I do have, with the unsettledness of what Hardy's going to be like, look like, and can do, I had to move them down. So I moved them down to 11, and that's where I have Missouri. And then the next team I have coming in there is this is hard to. I have the Florida Gators next. I think Florida will be improved. I think that Philo and Buster Faulkner will bring a lot of change to this offense. I think they have a really good receiving core, but it will all come down to that offensive line. Can it mesh? Can it grow up? Can the defense play to a high level? Can the secondary get better this year? I do think it will get better. I just still think it's going to be hard for Florida this year. Jaden Baugh is they're going to be some big boxes for Jaden Baugh. And so Philo's going to have to, if Philo's the guy, I think he will be. And maybe it's a little bit of a duo thing, him and Tramel Jones. I don't know. But I know Buster Faulkner and Philo, they have that. I think that's definitely a first day go because they have that relationship coming over from Georgia Tech. But I think it still has a lot of questions. I think Florida will be improved. This is where I think they improve to. So recapping that, Arkansas, Mississippi State at 15, Kentucky 14, Vanderbilt 13. And then I have Auburn 12, Missouri 11, Florida 10, and then I have the South Carolina Gamecocks at 9. I think that this line, they did enough work. It's just dependent upon injuries again, right? You had a couple of these guys, Jarius Peak, all these other people that did some off-season stupidity and got injured. It'll be key to see them in the fall and see how healthy they are, to see if Lenore Sellers is running for his life again. And some of these, Nick Harbor and, Nitro Tuggle and some of these guys, you remember Nitro Tuggle from Georgia, how good are they going to be, and how good can Dylan Stewart and this defense be at South Carolina? All of that is to be answered, but I do think it will be better. I think Shane Beamer will be better. I think Shane Beamer has recruited at a high level. However, I think he's got to win at least 8 games to be in the clear. It's going to be hard. I have them at like 7.5 over and under, I think. But I did push them up because I've been hearing people talk up South Carolina. And as I'm digging in, I look at Harbor and Tuggle and Sellers and an improved offensive line and Dylan Stewart and some pieces happening around him. I think South Carolina has the possibility. And, I think they like Shane Beamer. Like the players like Shane Beamer. They're going to play for him this year. They know his seat's, warming up, if not hot. Only the administration knows how hot that seat is. So at 8, looking in there, I have the Tennessee Volunteers. I think Tennessee is going to be another scary team this year. I think they're going to be one of the biggest sleepers in the SEC this year. And I like what they're going to, Heupel, are they going to have a freshman under center? Yes. Faison Brandon, George McIntyre. But I trust Heupel that he's going to be able to put an offense out there that's going to be electric. I think they're going to run the football very well this year. I think it has one of the best lines, if not in the SEC college football. I think Georgia and Tennessee have 2 of the best lines, once we see them, produce. I think Georgia and Tennessee both have top 5 offensive lines this year. But and then, can Jim Knowles on that defense side of the ball change that defense? A lot of question marks there. But if those questions are answered, what's their ceiling? Is playoffs their ceiling? I think I think 9-3 is their 10-2 is their like ceiling, and I think 6 or 7 wins are possible too. So, but I have them comfortably there at 8. At 7, I have the Alabama Crimson Tide. Man, I went back and forth with this one too. I think Alabama could have a rocky year. I know we previewed them and I went through their schedule. Alabama could have a rocky year. Keelan Russell, I think once again, you look at it, it's very similar. Look at all the freshmen that are starting. Look at all these guys starting their first games this year. And you look at Keelan Russell and you look at his ability, he could be great. But Alabama's going to struggle to run the football again this year. I think their defense is going to be very, very strong. I think when you look at their defense, you look at what they have coming back, I think it'll be the staple of what they want to do. But you can't count out the pieces and the athletes that Alabama has on the offensive side of the ball. How can Ryan Grubb make it connect them, right? Can Ryan Williams have another year like he did his first year? There's a lot of pressure on him this year. Either it's going to be pressure that's taken on the right way and go the right direction because he knows he has a chance to get drafted next year, or he has another year where he's like, man, I'm going to have to come back and play in Alabama because it might not be good enough to go out there on some of these statistics alone. We saw what he could be his freshman year. We saw what he was last year. He's got to challenge himself. He is the guy. Horton moves on to Texas A&M. They're definitely the athletes around them, but I think, again, they're going to struggle to run the football, and that's why I have them here at 7. At 6, this is where it kind of gets tough right here. I got Texas A&M at 6 for all the things I said earlier. Marcel Reed, when I looked at this, I said, who's going to be consistent enough at the quarterback position here, and who's going to be able to run the football, and who has enough returning on defense to be able to make it the long haul. And when I looked at those 3 answers, I looked at Texas A&M a little bit lower than some of the teams that I have above them. That was it. And not knowing the Marcel Reed we're going to see, the Jekyll and Hyde Marcel Reed had me looking and going, I have some quarterbacks that are above them as far as how I'm thinking in that nature. So I got Texas A&M sitting solidly there. In the 5th spot, man, this was a tough one. This was a tough one because I really like Oklahoma, and I question where these 3 teams fit in here. But at 5, I got LSU. I think LSU could be a sleeper in the college football playoff, but I do have them lower than some people have. For all the things, for Lane Kiffin, for Blake Baker, for the returning players they have on the other side of the ball, for the $40 million roster, for everything for Sam Levitt. Is he going to be healthy? But there's so many questions as well, right? So I'm just going to leave it at that. I got them at 5th. At 4th, I have Ole Miss coming in. A lot of questions there on, can Pete Golding coach all sides of the ball? Can he take his eye off the defense and be able to coach the entire team? Can the culture be right? Can he take on the ins and outs of planning practices and planning game days and how we do things and how we travel and how we think through all that stuff and how we get the team motivated, and do we over motivate them? Do we under motivate them? He's got a lot on his plate this year. So I just can't say that that's going to mimic. I mean, you can look and say Trinidad Chambliss and Kejuan Lacey, they're going to have to really tote the weight. And that offense is going to have to connect like it was there, yesterday to be able to do what they did last year in the SEC. And I just don't think it does. So I got them 4th. 3rd, I got the Oklahoma Sooners. I love Oklahoma this year. I'm betting on John Mateer being better. I'm betting on this line coming around. They're going to be able to run the football a little bit better this year. I think Satania and some of those receivers, and they can get a little more of the tight end play that they brought in through the portal. The defense is going to be really, really good this year. I think Oklahoma is a lock playoff team this year. I have them going in the playoff. These are my locks coming out of the SEC, and then I'll tell you the two that might could. I feel like one is going to get in as a 4th. There's a squeaker that could get 5 in. But I do have Oklahoma at 3. At 2, I have the Texas Longhorns. I think Texas, Arch Manning, and some of this, some of this money they spent, Cam Coleman, some of the playmakers, Hollywood Williams, all these guys that they got, this defense, Will Muschamp, obviously Will Muschamp is going to have to do some things really right this year. Let's hope that Sarkesian doesn't, and it's not going to be looked at like this. They're not going to allow Sarkesian to go, oops, it was Will Muschamp's fault, right? Man, I just think when you look at Texas, it's like they're built for a run this year, and if not this year, when? Now, to scare you, I will tell you there's a good chance, like Alabama, that this could be either second, or it could be a possibility where if they don't produce early on, the scary part is, here's the hot take is Texas is either top 2 in the SEC, or Sarkesian could be out mid-year. There's a good possibility. Go take a look. Don't take my word for it. But you can't look at those first games of the year and go, man, you lose to Ohio State, you lose to Florida, you do some of these things, and then you head up against some of these other teams, and you're like, where they're going to be come middle of the year. I think they have a huge test at the beginning of the year to make sure that they're where they want to be at the beginning of the year. Will Sark have them there? I don't know. I'm just telling you what I've said every single time that I've previewed Texas. It's like they've had the opportunity the last 3 years. I don't think Sark is a very good motivator. I don't think he's a guy that can just will his team to win. I think he's a great offensive mind, whether he can call the right plays in the right moments, whether he's created the right relationship with Arch Manning. I don't know. What I was speaking of is they could be top 2 in the SEC, or they could go to Ohio State, lose. They go to at Tennessee, lose. They could go to Oklahoma and lose. And they're sitting there traveling down to Gainesville going, is Sark playing for his life? I don't know. It's tricky. It's very, very tricky. And I don't know. Texas is going to be very close to watch. I don't think that'll happen. That's why I have them at second. Definitely don't. If I was a Texas fan, I mean, nobody would be sitting here. This was a Texas podcast. I wouldn't be calling for Texas to be not second or first in the SEC, but you got to look at those games and go, what if? I would tell you, if I'm Texas fans and that happens like that, there's no way Texas fans and boosters are not really pressing hard to go, Sark may need to have to go. He may need to go, because if we can get in, I mean, you got Texas sitting in another 3-4 loss year. not getting into the playoff, that's not going to be good enough for Texas this year. It's just not. And then I have no secret here. I have Georgia at 1. I will tell you that SEC comes through Athens until it doesn't. I really think that. I think Georgia is, built for this 9-game schedule. I think Kirby Smart is built for this 9-game schedule. And I think when you look at Texas, they don't play Texas this year. They don't play LSU this year. They don't play Texas A&M. They do have Oklahoma, which I have at the top up there, Alabama, obviously, and Ole Miss. But I think I'll just leave it at that. Until it doesn't, the SEC championship runs through Georgia. The regular season runs through Georgia. Just confident that it does. A lot of people have Georgia or Texas, so maybe not a shocker to anybody out there. But we are right at a power hour, and so it's exciting. We are, once again, finishing up our SEC summer preview, and that is a wrap. We did a preseason pick so we can figure out where we're at. You guys can all call me an idiot as far as the SEC is concerned. But guess what? We don't talk much about the SEC after this is all said and done. That's why we give a little time throughout the summer to do that. We talk a lot about Georgia, and we stick to the plan, the week to week, what's going on, injury reports, all things of that nature. And starting tomorrow night, make sure you join us. Me and Fish will be breaking down SEC Media Days. Georgia goes second tomorrow. Kirby Smart, Drew Bobo, Raylan Wilson, and Gunnar Stockton will be speaking. I think I said Kirby, obviously. And so ready to hear what they're going to say. I think it's going to be business as usual. There's going to be no shocking things that are going to come out of their mouths other than the norm. So you're going to see pretty even Steven with what's going on there. But just hearing their voice, and when this week is over, it finalizes kind of caps off the summer and gets us in the real mode of Georgia playing in just 46 short days. 46 short days we were playing. We actually started out at 47 because I started this tonight before midnight. So yeah, it's a wrap for SEC Summer Preview. Thank you guys for joining. Hey, listen, I know YouTube has been popping. Thank you guys for the support over on the YouTube platform. If you haven't already done so, please go and like and follow us. A lot of content will be coming your way as soon as a lot of the SEC Media Day stuff tomorrow night on TikTok. So go and follow us on TikTok, Dogs Down South, as well as YouTube, Dogs Down South. Share it. Tell your friends. Join. Follow us. Like it. Do all the stuff. Click it 8 times. Go back and watch some of the old episodes. We're on Apple Podcasts, Dogs Down South, as well as Spotify. We're just about on any podcasting platform that you can listen to a podcast. You can go find us on @Dogs Down South. Thank you for the support. We are looking forward to an incredible season. Make sure you join tomorrow night live around that 6:30 window tomorrow night. But if you don't get a chance to, remember you can catch us 24 hours later, as well as this one on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So thank you guys for the support. Hope you guys have a great rest of your evening. And as always on Dogs Down South, go Dogs.